Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the St. Tammany Parish Planning Commission. Today is Wednesday, November the 9th, 2016. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Casabon? Here. Mr. Lauren? Here. Mr. Richardson? Here. Mr. Richard? Mr. Willie? Here. Mr. Davis? Here. Mr. Fitzmaurice? Mr. Doherty? Mr. Drum? Here. Mr. Randolph? Here. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. This time we would ask that you silence all phones and electronic devices. If you wish to appeal any recommendation of this board, appeals cards are to our right. If you wish to speak in front of the commission, we would ask you fill out a speaker's card for our records. Each side will be provided 10 minutes to present with 5 minutes of rebuttal. And lastly, if you wish to discuss the case after we have concluded, we would ask that you go outside the building because if you go into the back lobby area, it does echo into the chamber. This time we would ask you to rise for an invocation by Commissioner Randolph, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Davis.
Gracious Father, once again we come to you with bowed down heads and lifted hearts to say thank you for all the blessings you bestowed in our lives. Thank you for watching over, protecting us, keeping us from all hurt, harm, and danger, for our families, our homes, our communities. Lord, we thank you for our country. Thank you for our leadership. And gracious Father, we thank you for this government that we serve and the commissioners that's on this group, Heavenly Father. Bless us, help us to make decisions that's in the best interest of all. Amen.
Thank you. In our package, we have the minutes of the October 11th, 2016 meeting. I'll entertain any comments or any motions.
Motion to
Commissioner
approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to approve, second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote. Motion carries. This is a public hearing. The public is invited to participate for or against any comment on any of our cases. Entering parish right-of-way, servitudes and easements, we have none. Minor subdivisions, 2016-448-MSP, an 11.549 acre parcel into lots 1 through 5, Ward 3, District 3. The owner, James and Richard Corr, surveyor, John G. Cummings and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable James Red Thompson. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proposed 5-lot minor subdivision. The reasons why a public hearing is required is more than one parcel is being accessed by a private drive. The owner is proposing to create 5 lots from a 11.549 acre parent parcel. And since the request complies with all code requirements, the staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision request.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Hugh Fitzgerald. I'm an agent representing the owners of this property. We have already the road in place. It's a private drive. In fact, these owners were looking at using it themselves. They were in the road building business. They built this road to extremely good standards and whatever, and then decided to sell the property down the road, sold the company that they had, and they're in the process of selling this. Thought they could get better money in smaller lots than the 11-acre tract. So that's the whole idea here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I might add that the roadway is not named on the survey, so they do have to put the name of the roadway on it.
Thank you. Noted for the record. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Willie.
Oh, yeah, it's fine. We move for approval.
Motion by Commissioner Willie to
I'll
approve.
second it.
Commissioner Casabon, second. Any further comment? We have a motion by Commissioner Willie to approve, second by Commissioner Casabon. Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-449-MSP, Lot 4 into Lots 4A and 4B, Ward 4, District 5. The owner, the Archdiocese of New Orleans. The surveyor, Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Reichard Toledano. Staff?
Yes, this is Lot 4, which is part of a existing 5-lot minor subdivision. They're proposing to take Lot 4 and divide it into 2 parcels. Again, the reason why the public hearing is they're creating an additional lot within an existing minor subdivision. The owner is proposing to create the additional lot from the lot within the existing minor subdivision, and since the request complies with all parish code requirements, the staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision request.
Thank you. Mr. Shane?
Good evening. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington, and I represent the Archdiocese of New Orleans. We're in full accord with staff comments and ask that you re-subdivide the tract as petitioned. If any of you have questions, I'll be glad to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hi there, my name is Terry Lewis Stevens, and I live in Dove Park, which is near this subject property, and rather than coming in support of this, I would like some clarification that the use or the purpose for subdividing this land is to sell this parcel for use as a funeral home, because that's what it was originally designed to be, part of the cemetery and funeral home, and that's what our understanding as neighbors of this property is. And I'm concerned because this project on Dove Park Road and Holy Trinity has undergone several bait and switch sort of situations, and so I'm suspect. So if we could, please, can we get confirmation that the purpose for this subdivision is for the funeral home and funeral home only, and the remainder of the subject parcel will remain a cemetery? Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Mr. Shane?
Yes, sir. In response to Ms. Stevens' comments as to what's pertinent as it relates to the discussion, this is a re-subdivision case and not a zoning case.
Correct.
But I think it's good for informational purposes that the assigned zoning to this tract of PF1 obviously is not at issue tonight. There is no pending application to change the zoning, and the current development plan is no different than it was at the time we created Lot 4, which was for a funeral home, a mausoleum, and a cemetery. As it relates to the comments that she made about the bait and switch, to the extent that that might be attributed to me or the Archdiocese of New Orleans, I obviously disagree, and I think if she's any kind of lady, she should offer an apology.
So noted. Would you care to rebut?
I'm sorry that the request was made for me to apologize for something that now I've been involved in since 2012. And if some of you've been on this panel for quite some time, you will know that in the past, in particular, there was a rezoning for an apartment building, which is what is there now.
If I may interrupt, this is a planning commission. This
I
is not
understand.
a zoning commission.
But I came before you when it was being rezoned.
This is
as-
I will remind you one more time, This is a planning case. We are not entertaining zoning. So if you'd like to address the planning issue, we will address it. Otherwise, I am not interested, nor is this commission, in hearing about the zoning of this particular case.
I was asked to come back up here and rebut my comment about the bait and switch. The bait and switch has to do with this project, so no, I will not retract my comments, because if you look at the record, you will see that is what happened, and that is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. No further comments. We close it to the public and we bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, I have a question. Ron, just a clarification, because maybe I'm not as up to date on the minor subdivisions. I thought there were 5 lots. How do we cut out the 4A? Is it because it's within,
Yeah,
it's
you're
so
always,
large?
yeah, once you do a minor subdivision,
Uh-huh.
you're always allowed to come back and do another re-subdivision of that minor subdivision as long as it complies with code.
And
In this case, it does.
And this is so large
Yes,
right now.
that's
But if
correct.
it, a normal, I knew it had to be 5
Right,
lots.
they actually,
or-
based on the zoning, it could be smaller lot,
Right.
but they're creating,
even-
yeah, a
even
larger
that.
lot here.
I'll
yes.
make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Randolph. Any further comments, please vote. Motion carries. 2016-457-MSP, a 14.463 acre parcel, and the parcels A through E, Ward 6, District 6. The owner, Ethan Polk et al., surveyor, J.V. Burks and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Richard Tanner. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, the reason why public hearing is required for this is more than one lot is accessing a private drive. There are multiple owners of the property involved here that are creating a total of 5 lots and a right-of-way parcel from a 14.463 acre parcel, parent parcels, I should say. And since a private drive is required to be constructed to a parish standard pursuant to section 40-045.01 minimum construction standards for a private drive of subdivision regulatory ordinance 499, said drive must be constructed prior to the survey plat being recorded for public record. Therefore, the staff recommends approval subject to the following. The survey needs to depict the name of the private road, Hunter Polk Drive, and 2, the private drive should terminate at an endpoint with either a cul-de-sac or some type of turnaround that's acceptable to the Department of Engineering.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? If you'd please come to the podium, state your name and address, and any comments you may have.
My name is Ethan Polk, 35113 Herman Singletary Road. The road is, it's all there. It actually has a cul-de-sac at the end of the road. We don't have the name on the driveway yet, but when we was told to go back and get the survey put in as a road, we was not told to do that. So that's why that's not there. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
Yes, Ron, a quick question. We handle these private drives quite frequently, but it's the first time I can remember one being required to have a name to it. What's the criteria for that?
No, all private drives, I just mentioned it on the first one that we had tonight, all private drives have to have a name for 911 addressing purposes.
Okay, it's for 911.
Yes.
Okay. But it's still a private drive, no parish obligation.
That's correct. That's correct.
Commissioner Casabon?
Yes, since it is, the private drive is constructed and it's been to the parish standards, is that correct, Ron?
To the,
It has been?
excuse me, to the, it'll have to be. The engineering department, part of the process is they'll have to go out and look at the
Okay.
roadway.
Is he up? Can I ask you a question? You said it was, come on up to the podium. You said that it was in there now, the
The
drive?
driveway is already in there. Yes, ma'am.
And how would we send somebody out to see if it's standard?
Yeah, it's
or-
it's common for people to use existing driveways for
Correct.
their minor subdivision that in most cases are not up to our standards. So the process at this point moves forward. If you approve it tonight, then we will send out a letter to the applicant advising them to contact and engage with our engineering department to determine what kind of construction or additional construction
Okay.
would be required.
And it's not going to be a private drive, you're going to do it as a public?
No, it's going to be a
road?
private drive.
Private,
Yeah,
so.
private
But that's,
drive.
the private drive is just in the event, it has to be up to standards in the event when you want the parish, you want to dedicate it to the parish.
No,
It would-
ma'am.
It would have to be up to standards?
No. It has to be up to I use the term semi-parish standard based on what the code requirements are. A 35-foot wide minimum right-of-way, 20-foot wide aggregate roadway with 2-foot shoulders and any kind of ditching or that would be required for drainage. That's a semi-parish standard private drive that's required per the ordinance. So after tonight, if you approve it, they will send a letter to them, tell them to talk to the engineering department,
Okay.
find out what needs to be done to bring it up to that standard,
that
if any.
standard.
Yes.
Okay.
And then once it's done and it's approved and the engineering signs off on it, then we record the plats.
Okay, do you understand what we're saying?
Yes,
Even
ma'am.
though that road's there, the parish would have to come out and inspect it
Yes,
and
ma'am.
stuff, as per that standard and stuff. I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Richardson. Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Willie.
Yes, for engineering, the parish is saying they need some type of cul-de-sac or turnaround. That L-shaped turn, would that be sufficient for them?
It may well be
Because
sufficient.
it's 40 feet wide, it seemed like that would be sufficient, so. I just want to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, we haven't looked at it yet, but
Okay.
whenever we do, we'll
Okay,
make sure it's
okay,
acceptable.
thanks.
Commissioner Davis, any further comment or question?
No, I was just gonna say, when the engineer goes out there and looks at all that, they'll go ahead and decide whether or not that's appropriate or not. And if not, they'll go ahead and inform Mr. Polk what he has to do, that's all.
Thank you. Any further comments? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Richardson. Please vote. Motion carries. Petitions request, we have none. Entering the Tammany Trace, we have none. Revocations closing review, we have none. Re-subdivision review, we have none. Dormant subdivision review, we have none. Tentative subdivision review, 2016-393-TP, Perilou Trace, Ward 1, District 1. Developer owner, Perilou Properties, LLC. Engineer, Aero Engineering and Consulting, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Postponed at the October 11, 2016 meeting. Since this case has been postponed twice in accordance to parish and state law, the Planning Commission must act on this request. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of comments that still are outstanding. Number one, the subdivision, only one entrance shall be designed with at a minimum of one 14-foot wide ingress travel lane, which they have on one side of the median, and a minimum of two 10-foot for a total of 20-foot wide egress lanes, which they currently do not show on the plat. I believe they show 15-foot. The developer is only depicting the 15-foot wide signal ingress lane. Therefore, the developer needs to add an additional 5 foot to the egress in order to provide two travel lanes, which would be a left-hand and a right-hand turning lane. Comment 2, Section 40-032.0, Ordinance 499, only permits a maximum cul-de-sac length of 700 feet. And since the proposed street exceeds that requirement, the developer is seeking a waiver of the cul-de-sac standards. See letter attached to your staff report from the developer. Additional requirements, the parish code requires a land clearing permit is required before getting a work order. Staff recommends approval, subject to comply with all staff comments. In addition, if the commission decides to grant the tentative subdivision request, The waiver of the regulations are required relative to the cul-de-sac issue pursuant to Section 40-100 waiver regulations of Ordinance 499, which requires a two-thirds majority vote of the full membership of the commission, which is 8 members, in order to grant said waiver. Engineering has some comments.
Tentative subdivision plan, number 1, the same developer. This is the same developer, therefore resubmittal should be added to the subdivision name. Number 2, the subdivision received preliminary approval in March 13, 2007, and a limited work order for clearing and grubbing on March 7, 2008. No work was accomplished, and therefore the developer requested release of the maintenance obligation. Department of Finance released the maintenance obligation on April 26, 2013. Paving and drainage. A drainage easement is needed along the entire length of the south side of the subdivision. Number 4, add a note stating that the detention pond shall be maintained by the HOA. Number 5, need to show a cross-section for the ditch to determine if there's adequate maintenance area and state the easement is public or private. Number 7, adjust the property line in the typical section to match the 80-foot right-of-way width. Number 8, adjust the property line in the typical section to match the 60-foot right-of-way width. Sewer and water comments. Number 8, verify Tammany Utilities that the utility site will be large enough to accommodate the proposed wastewater treatment plant. Watershed comments. Number 9, call out what is designated by shaded area with dots. If wetlands, then stipulate the wetlands consultant that performed the determination.
Thank you. Is there a representative for the petitioner?
Daryl Fussell with Aero Engineering, 237 Natchez Trace in Covington. I'm working for Mr. Decote, the owner, who's also drawing the plans and doing some of the work. He's also a civil engineer. And so in regards to the comments, we turned in revisions to the planning department several weeks ago, and they're not reflected in these comments. I don't know what happened, and we should have followed up with it, but we addressed the comments found here. In regards to item number 2, which is really the biggest comment, the waiver, Mike met with the engineering department with Jay and Earl to see if there were any alternatives to address the fact that the road is longer than 700 feet. And the engineering department did not have any recommendations other than for us to seek a waiver. And from a practical standpoint, it's my opinion that the intent of that ordinance and to limit the straightaways on these roads is in a big subdivision where someone could get up significant speed or be tempted to go over the speed limit and create a hazard. In our case, our subdivision, the road is less than a city block, and of course every 100 feet that you go, there's less traffic because only you go down to the end of the cul-de-sac. And so we're, it's our opinion that this would be a suitable situation where the waiver could be granted and should be granted. And so that's my comments.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to comment in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to comment in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, Daryl? I know when this first came upon us, I think I made a recommendation to you guys to go ahead and put another cul-de-sac in between lots 5, 6, 20, and 19. This was just done by Jeff Shane, if you remember last month, when we required him to do the exact same thing, is to put an additional, and there was no problem to it. So I don't quite understand.
When we spoke to engineering, they weren't too keen on that idea.
Okay, the only problem you're going to have tonight is there's only 8 of us here, and I'm not going to vote for it.
I understand.
So it'd be denied.
Yeah, I
But
understand.
I just don't see why you just couldn't put another one. And I understand what you're thinking about the cars speeding up and stuff like that, but that's not also the main reason to have turnarounds. In case somebody comes down and decide, oh, I'm lost, I have no idea where I am. Instead of going in somebody's driveway, backing up and hitting a car or something,
Yeah, I
they could just
understand.
go around. So
I understand.
realistically, I think if the person you're working for is a civil engineer, you should be able to figure out how to fix this according to code. That's all.
Okay.
Commissioner Lauren.
A question about, under the writing we were given that had to do with the maintenance obligation. As I read that, no work was done. They requested that the maintenance obligation be released. But it doesn't say that there's going to be a new maintenance obligation.
That's because it received preliminary approval. Now they're for tentative approval tonight. The maintenance obligation will be established at preliminary approval.
But there
when
will
they
be a
come.
maintenance obligation.
Definitely.
Okay.
Commissioner Randolph.
Darrell, you said that you submitted the responses to planning department. Under the paving and drainage, have all those items been addressed, especially items 3 and items 6 and 7?
Yes.
Okay, so the drainage easement for the entire length of the south side has been satisfied?
Yes.
Okay, that was the only.
Okay.
Any other comments? Any of the commissioners wish to place forward a motion?
I have one more question of Darrell. How long is that road? I don't have that plan before me. 1,200?
Yeah, it's right under 1,300 feet.
And according to code, how many cul-de-sacs would have to be put in place? Just one?
The maximum cul-de-sac length is 700 feet. So
Okay, how many cul-de-sacs, so one would have to be put in?
Right, they would just,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I move for approval.
Motion by Commissioner
second
Willie
it.
to approve, second by Commissioner Casabon. With the waiver.
With the waiver.
With the waiver. It will require 8 votes to carry. Please vote. Motion fails.
Darrell, you, obviously, since it was denied, you have the right to appeal 10 days from this date to the council.
Thank you.
On planning? It doesn't go to final? Just a point of clarification, they'll appeal the tentative, but then it's got to come back to this commission for final with the appropriate changes.
That's correct.
Preliminary.
Well, I understand, but again, when it comes to final, then there would not be an appeal. The commission has the final authority. Okay. Preliminary subdivision, 2016-384-PP. Pontchartrain Medical Park, Ward 4, District 5. Developer owner, Vocal McWilliams Construction Company, engineer Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Reichert Toledano. Postponed at the October 11th, 2016 meeting. Staff?
Preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office and an inspection was made of the site. It's recommended that preliminary approval be approved, subject to the following. Paving and drainage, additional elevation information is needed along approximately 40 feet of the ditch on the south side of Hickory Street between the detention storage area, outfall pipe, and the 24-inch cross-drain culvert to ensure the ditch is graded to provide positive flow and capacity. Provide a cross-section for the Hickory Street ditch on the paving and drainage plan showing this information. Water and sewer, revise the sewer and water plan to show a fire hydrant with required valve assembly between lots 15 and 14. Revise the sewer and water plan to show a fire hydrant with required valve assembly in front of Lot 9 near the intersection of Medical Park Court and Medical Park Drive. Revise the sewer and water plan to include sewer connection for Lot 1. Stormwater, a detail for the proposed construction entrance is required. Revise the stormwater plan to include this detail. Informational items, all LADOTD comments regarding the TIA must be addressed and approved by DOTD before a work order will be issued. Plans and specifications for the construction of the project's water distribution lines and sewer collection lines have not yet been approved by the Department of Health as required. No work order will be issued until submitted plans and specifications are approved by DHH. No maintenance obligation is required since this is an extension of a private subdivision. Mandatory developmental fees will be required at final submittal in accordance with Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance 499 since no public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Department of Development Planning has the following comments.
Thank you. Based on the comments that were made at the tentative level, I wanted to just reemphasize it based according to the revised plan under the preliminary process, the streets within the subdivision will remain private. That resolves an issue that we had with that earlier. And comment 2, Parish Code requires that land clearing permits be applied for and obtained through the Department of Planning prior to the developer receiving a work order in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision review process.
Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of the petitioner, Vocal McWilliams and Mr. Pacey McWilliams. All of the staff comments have been addressed in revised submittals that were submitted to your engineering office. There was some confusion in that when this matter was tabled back in October, we had actually submitted the revised drawings which addressed each and every one of these comments on October 6th. When it was tabled in October, we had to make a full resubmittal to appear on the November agenda. Somehow, although the revisions were made on the October 6th submittal, the submittal made to get back on the November agenda apparently did not reflect those changes, but that has been rectified, and those documents in correct format are now in your engineer's office. The only item on the list that is not yet resolved is the approval of DHH, which, as you know, that often comes a little bit later. All of the other substantive items have been addressed, including the approval from DOTD. That has been received and provided to engineering as well. So as we appear before you tonight, each and every item on this list has now been satisfied. You may also recall that the reason this matter was tabled is that for the last several months we've been working with Councilman Toledano and with some of the residents in the Colonial Court area and the Hickory Street area in an effort to address some of their concerns. And as a result of those meetings, my client has committed to various concessions, which I explained to Councilman Toledano that I would put on the record this evening, and I'd like to do that. The first is that we have agreed to reduce or limit the height of any buildings on the lots that actually back up to Colonial Court to 35 feet. That would mean that the height limitation on these lots would be equal to the height limitation if a residential structure was placed there. In addition, the 10-foot buffer along the back of these lots will be a no-cut buffer. We have agreed to construct an 8-foot opaque fence along the inside of that buffer. So we won't clear the buffer to build the new fence. We'll establish the buffer. 10 feet within that on our property, we'll construct an 8-foot opaque fence along the Colonial Court property line as well. We will also agree to use Lakeview Drive as the primary construction access way so that there will not be a lot of construction traffic on Hickory Street and the surrounding residents. And we will memorialize all of this into a deed restriction that will run in favor of each of the lot owners that abut us in Colonial Court. That deed restriction memorializing each of these concessions will be filed of record in accordance with the time that the final plat for this project would be filed so that it will run with the land, will bind not only my client but also any future owners of these lots. There is one other item that I failed to mention that came up as well. You may be aware that there's been a concern with some of the drainage in the Colonial Court area. While this project cannot fix those existing problems. We are committed to make sure that our property drains better, that we have the required retention. You see the significant detention pond on our plan. But also, we have committed through working with your engineering office to construct a small swale on the inside of that rear fence to collect that water, to make sure that it doesn't get to our neighbors on Colonial Court. So we'll have the other required infrastructure for drainage, but we'll also have that swale along that back fence line to further ensure that we are sensitive to the issues that Colonial Court currently has. With that said, we would respectfully request your approval of preliminary this evening. I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners may have at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Samantha. I'm at 428 Colonial Court. And we met with Councilman Toledano and the attorneys for the project, and they were very gracious to listen to our concerns. We came today because we wanted to make sure that these things are put on record so that they will put into the deed restrictions. One of the items that we did discuss that night also was the downlighting, because this will be off the back of our homes where our bedrooms reside. We would like to make sure that all of the lighting is facing downward so that we're not having that type of light shining into our homes. In addition to that, we've got 3 other concerns that we wanted to bring to the attention. One is some of these facilities are going to be some of these facilities are going to be medical facilities. We're concerned about the garbage because it can be medical waste. We want to make sure something's put into place that this will be closed off. I mean, something will be done so that it's not accessible, because there could be some of that stuff that could end up in our properties, and we want to be sure it doesn't. Secondly, when the church construction went in, that is on the other side of our streets, on the other side of Westway, there were hours that were posted where they only worked on certain days, and I wanted to know if there were going to be any specific hours that they could work on this project. They usually started that project at 7 a.m. I know, because every morning we would hear the booms in our neighborhood. This is going to be directly behind my house, so I'm curious as to whether or not they're going to have restricted times. If so, we'd like to know what those times are. If not, I personally would like to request that they don't start before 8 a.m. We live and work in these neighborhoods, and if this is going to be occurring, it shouldn't be disrupting our daily lives. In addition, I wanted to know, my particular property is 428. There is a ditch that is directly at the property line. I believe it was put in by my previous homeowner. I bought the home in the last 2 years, and that particular ditch is fairly deep. I would like to know whether or not that's going to be something that the developers are willing to address, or if it's something I'm going to be filling in, because that's going to continue to affect what's happening on the other side of the ditch. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Mr. Marone, would you care to address any of the concerns? And
Yes.
again, you did have meetings with Representative or Councilman Toledano, correct?
We did, and the downlighting that Ms. Samantha mentioned was an item that we discussed, and we did agree that the downlighting on the entire, that the lighting on the entire project would be appropriately downlighted, shielded, with all of the requirements that the parish has for lighting to make sure that it does not bleed over into the adjacent residence. And so we do commit to that. She's correct. We did discuss that, and we agreed to that. With regards to the garbage, as you know, the parish ordinances require that there be enclosures around those dumpsters, and we will, of course, have those enclosures as required, so they will be fenced. In addition, though, if you'll recall what I described earlier, there will be an 8-foot opaque wooden fence along our entire boundary with Colonial Court. So there will be that fence, then there'll be the fences for these corrals for the dumpsters to ensure that does not create a problem. We have not discussed the hours of operation as far as the construction goes. However, I'm happy to talk to my client about that and to continue to correspond with the residents. And I feel certain that we can work out mutually agreeable times so that we're respectful of them when we're putting in the infrastructure for this project. Finally, with regards to the ditch, I don't know the details about that ditch. I'm not sure if that ditch is within our property or within her property, so I can't comment in detail on that. All I would say is that in the process of mobilizing to put in our infrastructure, we will be marking the property lines. At that time, we will know where that ditch is located, if it is on our side or if it is on her side. And if it is on our side, we will work with her to make sure that whatever action is necessary that we take in order to properly construct our project so as not to impede anything going on her property. So with those comments, our further commitment to continue to work with the residents and Councilman Toledano, we would ask for your approval, subject to these discussions and your staff comments of preliminaries so that we might move forward to the next stage of this process.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. This time I'd close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
Subject to the conditions that Mr. Morone mentioned earlier, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve, second by Commissioner Randolph. Any further comments? Seeing Commissioner Randolph?
Paul?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to commend you and the homeowners for the communication and the meetings that you all have. It makes it easy for us. As it relates to the lighting, the downsides of the lighting, will that be included as a part of your deed restriction, or is that just?
If that's something that we need to include in the deed restriction, we're happy to do that.
Okay.
Any other questions of the commission? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve, second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-425-PP, The Preserve at River Chase, Ward 1, District 1. Developer owner, The Preserve at River Chase, LLC. Engineer, SLD Engineering, LLC. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Postponed at the October 11th, 2016 meeting. Staff?
Mr. Chairman, there's additional comments underneath that item. The developer is requesting postponement until the December meeting. And again, a little additional comment under that. If this case is postponed, it will be the second time in consecutive months. Therefore, in accordance to parish and state law, the Planning Commission must act on this request next month.
Thank you. Is there any comment from the public regarding the postponement? Seeing none, close it to the public, bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
Motion to postpone.
Motion by Commissioner
I'll
Davis to
second.
postpone. Commissioner Lauren, second. Any further comment? We have a motion by Commissioner Davis to postpone for 1 month. Second by Commissioner Lauren. Please vote. Motion for postponement carries. 2016-453-PP, Village at Pelican Trace, Ward 4, District 7. Developer owner, Jimmy Shields. Engineer, Kyle Associates, LLC. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Jacob Groby. Staff?
Preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office and an inspection of the site was made. It's recommended that preliminary submittal be approved subject to the following. Revised restrictive covenant number 14 to state the HOA will maintain all ditches or maintain all drainage servitudes, detention ponds, and outfall ditch. 2, remove ponds from the dedication on the preliminary plat. The ponds are called out in the restrictive covenants to be maintained by the HOA. 3, revise the receiving waters map so that the specific stormwater path, including drainage ditches from the detention pond outfall to Lake Pontchartrain, is clearly labeled. This outfall path must reflect the path shown on the drainage plan. Utility plan, Number 4, add a cross-section call-out on the plans that corresponds to the waterline canal crossing detail. Number 5, remove the all-way plaques at the intersection of Sports Complex Drive and the parking lot entrances. Number 6, computations should include existing pond capacity as well as what increase is needed with the proposed conditions. The report should discuss the existing pond's drainage purpose and the overall site's existing function, including site-specific drainage characteristics. The report should discuss topography and adjoining properties. Number 7, plans and specifications for the construction of the project's water distribution lines and sewer collection lines have not yet been approved by the Department of Health and Hospitals as required. No work order will be issued until the submitted plans and specifications are approved by DHH. No maintenance obligation is required since this project fronts LA Highway 1088. Mandatory developmental fees will be required at final submittal in accordance with Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance 499 since no public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Department of Development Planning has the following comments.
Comment 1 is a condition of plan unit development, green space and/or amenities are required within the development pursuant to Parish Code. Therefore, the developer should present to the Department of Development a recreational development plan prior to the developer being issued a work order in conjunction with a preliminary subdivision approval. Said plan should be presented in a document form inclusive of the amenities that are being provided, a site plan and/or a landscape plan if applicable, a time schedule for the development, and the entity or entities whom shall be responsible for the liability and maintenance of the recreational and/or green space areas. Comment 2 says the developer is providing a walking, jogging path. The developer needs to provide a cross-section detail on the PUD plan, where this would be on the preliminary plan depicting of the width and materials to be used for the construction of the walking, jogging path. Said path cannot be simply grass or dirt. The path should be constructed of either an aggregate, semi-hard, or hard surface materials pursuant to past Planning Commission policy.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here?
Hi, good evening. My name is Eddie Powell with Kyle Associates, 638 Village Lane North, Mandeville, 70471. We're in the process of addressing these last little bit of comments. No real issues that we have with them. Just got to work through the last little details with Jay's office. And so we're here requesting approval and here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Caller Hernandez. It's more informational questions or comments that I have. You know, it's interesting that last month, as a zoning commission, you approved the PUD for this. Now, tonight, the following month, we're approving preliminary. So you're skipping the tentative. What wasn't stated, I guess, at the PUD meeting was that it does allow for the PUD to be considered tentative approvals, but I certainly don't recall anything like that being mentioned of that. If you recall, the number of units that were cited in the PUD was 43 and 46. Now, tonight, it's 24. And I'm curious, I mean, hopefully 24 is obviously a lesser number, and I'm just curious whether this is a phase or this is now the new final number for the total, whereas before it was in the order of 40 for that. Also, I requested last time consideration for a 50-foot buffer around between the homes that were being proposed and the subdivisions. I represent one of the subdivisions, Forest Brook. The next one is Quail Creek, and I don't know. I tried to look for the information earlier today, but unfortunately I had to put a public request in for that, and it takes a little time. So I don't know the answer to that, whether in fact the plans now reflect that or not. You know, the other thing is the existing Mandeville Sports Complex. If any of you have the opportunity to drive by, especially on Friday evenings, you will see that there is a great deal of demand for parking for the complex. And the complex generates a lot of activity. And of course, it's going to be made part of, you know, the people that live there. Of course, there are people all around there who are members. The interesting thing is now, and I'm wondering about this, whether there's any requirement for limitation. The new roadway, the new entrance roadway that's going to go there would be where people, I've seen park there now. It's a grassy area where people park now as an overflow kind of situation. And I'm wondering if there's a need, and I don't know if there's a need, to have some kind of restriction in the roadway itself. But I guess certainly having a nice paved roadway right there, I think would now permit parking on a pavement as opposed to parking on a grass, which many people do now because of the overflow demand that they have in for the thing. It's just a comment about that, and hopefully when I do get to see the plans, I'll get to see the storm water drainage plan, because I still am concerned about that because of what I had seen under the PUD proposal, based on what the possible effects would be to the adjoining subdivision, since it was showing going through our subdivision where we do not have anything to permit that at this point, and I'm just curious as to where the drainage plan shows the thing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Would you care to rebut any of Mr. Hernandez or address any of his concerns?
As far as the number of units, first of all, I think that might be a typo on the agenda or the staff report, but it is the same number that was discussed at the PUD, which is 46. As far as the drainage, I'd be happy to meet with them maybe offline and discuss the drainage, but you know, we're doing everything in accordance with the drainage requirements of the parish, maintaining existing drainage patterns, providing for the necessary detention, you know, based on the size of our tract. So I'd be happy to discuss that further, you know, with them if necessary. As far as the parking for the Mandeville Sports Complex maybe spilling over into the other part of the development, I mean, I guess that becomes more of a code enforcement issue if that does become a problem. We are realigning driveways in accordance with some comments that we have received from DOTD. We're losing some of the driveways from the parking lot of Mandeville Sports Complex, trying to consolidate entrances for safety and things like that. So we are working with DOTD on that as well. So other than that, I think that's it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez, any further comment? We appreciate the fact that you're willing to meet with Mr. Hernandez to go over the drainage. This time I would close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
Yes, for the gentleman that was up here talking. Yes, sir. If I recall this, when you do your recreational development plan, you're including a free membership to the sports complex for every landowner that buys a lot, if I recall this correctly?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
You're going to put that in your
Yeah, that can be part of the recreational plan.
development plan?
Yes, sir.
That's good.
Sure.
Unlike the previous couple of cases ago where we were talking about cul-de-sacs and everything like that, I'm looking at the design of the road itself that goes all through the subdivision, and even though it looks like a deformed cul-de-sac, it looks nice.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you why. I like the idea of being able to come off of 1088 and going into Pelican Trace or going into Sports Complex Drive, and you're almost forced to slow down a little bit because of the curves.
Yes, sir.
So I do like that design of the road itself. I think that kind of adds that.
Thank you.
A little bit of, you know.
A lot of that was dictated too by some of the ponds and the wetlands in the
Right.
interior, so.
Right, so.
Kind of had
but
to
it
get a
worked
little
out well
creative.
for you, is what
Yeah,
it
we had to
looked-
get really
what it
creative
looks
with
like.
that, so.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner Randolph? Commissioner Willen? We have a motion by Commissioner Davis, second by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-454-PP, Abita Lakes, Phase 3B2, Ward 10, District 6. Developer owner, Abita Lakes LLC. Engineer, Duplantis Design Group, PC. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Richard Tanner. Staff.
Preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office, and an inspection was made of the site. It's recommended that the preliminary submittal be approved. A funded maintenance obligation in the amount of $10,000 is required in accordance with Subdivision Ordinance 499, Section 4061.08, funded letters of credit for existing parish roads to ensure the repair of any damage to the roads resulting from the construction in connection with the subdivision. No mandatory developmental fee is required at final submittal in accordance with Subdivision Ordinance 499 since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here?
Good evening. I'm Dustin Silbernagel with Duplantis Design Group on behalf of Abita Lakes LLC. I just want to add that this is the last phase of an existing subdivision, and we just ask for approval from the commission.
Thank you.
And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor?
Thank you. My name is Rick Lumiere. I am the president of the Abita Lakes Property Owners Association, and we are in favor and do appreciate the fact that the developer is finally finishing this phase, but at the same time, we have several concerns that we are having some difficulty getting addressed. And I wasn't sure if tonight is the proper forum to bring this up, but we just have questions. The preliminary plans indicate that the Abita Lakes Property Owners Association will be responsible for the green space, but we really are not sure how that impacts us as an association, what green space is going to be applied, removed, changed. We understood that there will be a potential gate to this section of the community. We're not sure how that impacts us as a property owner association. And we've tried to reach out to Mr. Bruno, the developer, several times with no response. So I came here tonight just looking for some guidance and hoping that we could, again, we're in favor, we're glad they're there, we're not opposed to what he's doing, we just want to make sure that our concerns are appropriately addressed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else which wishes to speak in opposition or comment?
Don Rogowski, 325 Long Lake Drive. As it was mentioned, this is the last phase of the subdivision for Abita Lakes. I am very grateful that they're developing that area that we refer to as the sand pit because it's an attractive nuisance, let's say it that way. My only concern is this is, and I hope this is the right form, you're discussing this as a planning commission, right? So this is with subdividing a property. Maybe there's more information that I'm unaware of, but in the joint public notice with the Corps of Engineers dated March 3rd, 2014, to address a lot of the wetlands issues that were created by the previous developer, at the front of the property where the main entrances are, there is some mixed hardwood wetlands that apparently, from the documentation, is still a matter of concern with the Corps of Engineers. And in the document that I referenced, when they wanted to take care of all the wetlands issues related to properties, say like around North Arcadia that they're now starting to sell, it specifically says not a part. So me as the landowner, or in the subdivision, my concern is the planning commission going to approve this 3B, which I'm very much in favor of, but are you recognizing that apparently there's still some wetland issues, and I may be in error because I'm just a layman, I'm not an expert, that the developer is not going to address And then, once they sell off this property, it's going to be up to the homeowners that are going to take over all the green space to deal with the wetlands issue. So that's my only concern, is that it's the last place where they're going to be able to take money out of the property. Once that's gone, are they not going to do anything with regards to the wetlands issue, and it'll become a homeowners association issue? Otherwise, I am so glad that they have bought this property and developing it and everything else and taking care of all the other wetlands issues. So I'm very much in favor, but I am concerned about that, and I just wanted to raise that with the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to comment? The Honorable Richard Tanner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to request that the developer or the engineer firm that's working with this project to get with the homeowners association and answer some of their questions, because I understand that they're not getting any response from anybody. They didn't even know what a PUD was, and if they're being asked to take over the green space, well, they're taking over a lot of wetlands in this area, because they're only putting in 17 houses in 31 acres. So I assume there's going to be a good bit of wetlands there. And if it's been violated, well, then there's some things that the Corps require you to do on an annual basis to maintain that wetland. I want to make sure that the homeowners association that get stuck with that.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any comment? Yes, you may.
Thank you very much for your comments. My only comment is, from what I understand, where 3B is, I don't think there's any wetlands issue. The wetlands that I'm talking about is at the front of the property where the two main roads are. So I don't think there's any problems with the 3B. It's more of green space that will already be turned over. Thank you.
Thank you. In all due respect, when the council member specifically addresses for developers to engage with the homeowners association, I would strongly advise it. Staff, do you have any comments relative to any of the questions raised?
I'm not aware of the wetlands issues, but 3B2 is in the very back of the subdivision. There's no construction going on in the front of the subdivision where these wetlands issues are apparently located, but we can look into it and see.
Thank you. This time we close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
Based on the fact that there are several questions that need to be resolved, I'll make a motion that this be postponed until the December meeting to give the owners and the developer an opportunity to have a meeting and work it out.
Motion by Commissioner Lauren to postpone until our December meeting, second by Commissioner Willie. Any further comments? Please vote. Motion carries. Final subdivision review. River Park Crossing, 2016-426-FP. River Park Crossing, Phase 1, Ward 3, District 3. Developer owner, D.R. Horton Incorporated. Engineer, Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable James Red Thompson. Postponed at the October 11, 2016 meeting. Developer requests postponement until the December meeting. Staff, any comment?
Yes, sir. Additional comment that if this case is postponed, it will be the second time in consecutive months. Therefore, in accordance to parish and state law, the Planning Commission must act on this request next month.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the postponement? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Close it to the public, bring it to the commission. Commissioner Willie.
Move to postpone.
Motion by Commissioner Willie to postpone until December.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Randolph. Seeing no further comment, We have a motion by Commissioner Willie to postpone until December, second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-450-FP, Beatico Creek, Parcel F, Ward 1, District 1. Developer owner, Beatico Creek Preserve LLC. The engineer, Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Staff.
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and final inspection was made on October 27, 2016. The inspection disclosed that all of the concrete roads are constructed, road shoulders are constructed, and the roadside swale ditches need final grading. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. Need concrete test results, need floppy disk or latest format, need blue reflectors at each hydrant. A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not yet been issued by DHH as required in Section 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance 499. A letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance operation of the sewer and water system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 1,685 linear feet at $25 a foot for $42,100 for a period of 5 years. Staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request, subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plans to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. No mandatory developmental fees are required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of Beatico Creek Preserve LLC. Another phase in the Beatico Creek development, this time Parcel F. I've confirmed with our contractor that the roadside swale ditches have been completed to final grade. The concrete test results have been submitted, the floppy disk has been submitted, and the blue reflectors are down. All of these items are complete. The bacteriological samples have been taken. We're waiting on that report to come back. Once that comes back, we expect to have the letter of acceptance from the utility company. With that said, we would respectfully request your approval of this phase. I believe everything's in order. I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners may have.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve, second by Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner Randolph, any further comment? None. We have a motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve, second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-451-FP, Hidden Creek, Phase 2, Ward 1, District 3. Developer owner, Hidden Creek LLC. Engineer, Myers Engineering. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable James Red Thompson. Staff.
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction. The final inspection was made October 27, 2016. The inspection disclosed that all the concrete roads are constructed, road shoulders are constructed, roadside ditches are functioning, and detention ponds are constructed. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before plats are signed. Remove Phase 1B from the subdivision layout on the title sheet. Only show Phase 2 on the subdivision layout. All drawings must indicate Phase 2 on the record drawing and must be dated 10/11/2016 and only display Phase 2 work. Remove the driveway culvert schedule from the final plat. Remove the legend that denotes future phase work from the final plat. The final plat should only display work for Phase 2. The benchmark used for the survey to survey the property must be shown on the final plat. Remove restrictive covenant number 7. The pond limits for each pond are not defined. Show a detail of the pond. The existing ditch labeled on the plat is Scenic River, Soap, and Tallow Creek and should be labeled accordingly. A call out for a 100-foot no-cut buffer on each side of the soap and tallow is required. Add a call out for a 50-foot no-cut buffer on the north side of Tallow Creek. Revised restrictive covenant number 15.
Excuse me, staff.
Mhm.
I don't see the need to read all 20, 30, 32 items on your list. I think that would be a waste of your time. Is this all still due at final?
Yes, this is all due. These are things that are needed on the as-built plans that we were provided. The actual construction of the subdivision and the inspection of the subdivision, it was probably one of the best subdivisions we've seen in the field.
Oh,
But we just need these things done on the as-built plans.
and you must be the developer, or?
I'm the engineer. I'm Matt Filati, Meyer Engineers. I'm representing the developer on this. Apologize for, 40-some-odd comments. We received the comments last week. We corrected them. We submitted to the staff. We have addressed every single one of the comments. As you can read them, it's more housekeeping to the as-built drawings themselves. It's not actually part of the construction that needs to be completed. So all that work has been done as far as the drawings are completed and submitted to staff for final review.
Okay, so the staff hasn't looked at the final review?
I received the plans this morning, and we haven't looked at them yet.
Yeah, that's a little bit late.
Well, we tried to submit them 2 days ago, but the election was off and nobody was in the office, so.
I think it's probably best for the staff to go ahead and take a month off and hear it next week, so I make a motion to postpone.
No.
I won't accept your motion at this time, Commissioner Davis, until we go through the normal process.
Oh,
But
sorry.
I respect
Sorry.
your motion. Staff has stated all of these are still in need, and that
We haven't been able to verify
you
any of
haven't
these
reviewed
comments.
because, again, as Mr. Davis, Commissioner Davis has noted, and engineer has, that you received the documents this morning.
I did receive the documents this morning.
Okay. But of course, you have not had nearly ample time to review them.
No, I did not have time today.
Okay. And you confirm the fact that they were submitted this morning, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At this time, I would ask if there's anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the petition. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
I'll make a motion to postpone for 1 month.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to postpone for 1 month. Commissioner Willie.
I'm not seconding it, but I had a question. If it's permissible.
Commissioner Lauren, second. Commissioner Willie.
Like you saying, it was one of the best subdivisions you've seen out in the field when you inspected.
That's correct. The roadside ditches were
And all I
graded,
see is basically paperwork and maps and drawing, finalization mostly, except for item number 25, and that was for the riprap.
Yes,
Is
that's
that- has that
been
been done?
completed, yes.
Okay, I can't support the postponement because I feel like he's in good shape.
We have a motion by Commissioner Davis, second by Commissioner Lauren to postpone, and I would, just a point of personal privilege, I think that this commission has made it very clear to all developers and all engineers that we will give our staff ample time to review. So the fact of the matter is, and we commend the staff and potentially the developer for having an exceptional development. However, we will respect the fact that our staff will comply with their responsibilities and that a developer should provide them the documents that they require in ample time so they can perform their duties for the public. That is the reason I would imagine Commissioner Davis has requested the postponement. So at this time, we do have a motion to postpone for 1 month, second by Commissioner Lauren. Please vote. Motion for postponement carries. Proposed amendments to Ordinance 499, an ordinance to amend the St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances, Appendix B of Chapter 40, amending Section 40-034.01, contiguous lot rule of subdivision Regulatory Ordinance Number 499 to provide for modifications thereto. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proposed amended ordinance that was done by a council committee along with Mr. Fontenot and legal staff. So I was not involved in the case in this process. However, we do have the Honorable Richard Tanner here, who was a member of that committee, and he'd be willing to speak and talk about that issue.
Thank you. Councilman Tanner.
I got 30 minutes or 10.
You can have what you wish, sir.
Now, actually, this is this ordinance only affects the area to the north of the growth line. So what we're trying to do is eliminate these dormant subdivisions that are all have 60-foot lots, 25-foot lots actually, and they, according to our rules now, you can put two 25-foot lots together and have a 50-foot lot, and they don't have to follow the zoning that they're actually under now, because which require, if you would develop in that subdivision under the present zoning requirements, you would have to put in sewer and water and what have you. And so what we're doing is we're increasing the lot size from 50 feet to 75 feet. So you would have to put 3 lots together to make a lot, a buildable lot. And if there's no streets built and what have you, then you have to go through the complete subdivision process that everybody else has to go through, so that staff and what have you can look and see what we've got, control, put sewage, water, traffic studies, drainage studies, this type of stuff, so that these things don't turn out to be a bunch of septic systems running into the ditch in front of people's houses. And this basically, and we worked on this a while. We had, we did it fast. We probably have to make some amendments to it as we go along. But this allows us to turn loose a moratorium that we had put on some property, well, all properties really, that are dormant subdivisions. And, and we don't want to take property out of commerce, but we do want to protect the health and human resources of the people in our parish. So we would ask that you would recommend adoption this back to the council so that we can adopt it and take our moratorium off of dormant subdivisions. That's all I have. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councilman Tanner.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of this?
I just have a clarification.
If you'll come to the podium, sir.
Jeff St. Romain, Habitat for Humanity, St. Tammany West. The ordinance that is in the packet is 5681, and the ordinance that the council referred to this body last week is 5681 AA. And I had that conversation with Councilman Gene Belisario the other day, and he was going to he was going to send an email or contact Mr. Fontenot. So, because there are some differences between this one and the one the council sent here.
Staff?
Yeah, at the time that we put the packet together, we only had the original one. We did get the one, the AA today, and we put it in your package. As you know, you all got emails today regarding showing that amendment to that.
And that was 5681 as amended, correct?
Correct, yes.
Thank you for the clarification. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
After reading a lot of this it looks like item number 7 where it says information about 75-foot front on the set line in Dove Park subdivision area. It's come to my attention that in Dove Park, some of the lots are 50-foot, so obviously if you purchase 2 lots, that wouldn't be a problem. But there's also some lots in Dove Park that aren't, they're 50-foot minimum, but there may be like a 90-foot lot next to it. So if you add that total together, it'd be 140. So the 75-foot rule wouldn't work for that. So should we, at this time, go ahead and make that 70-foot for the Dove Park area? I'm just asking. Or should we just wait till,
Well, I don't
you
think
know,
we have-
I hate
don't
to
think we have
fine-tune
wait
everything.
Because you didn't listen to what I said. I said that if this is above the urban growth line, this applies. If it's below the urban growth line, it does not apply. Dove Park Road is below the urban growth line.
okay, so,
This doesn't apply to that.
okay, so, but it's still written in here.
But you,
Okay, all right,
Please,
okay.
Counsel.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think what Mr. Davis was saying, and Mr. Tanner is correct, that the primary changes in this ordinance deal with the minimum lot width north of the growth boundary line in the more suburban and rural areas of the parish. However, what Mr. Davis is referring to is there just happens to be, while the commission is looking at these revisions to the contiguous lot rule of the parish, there has come, like he said, to the attention not only of himself, but also to the legal staff for the planning and zoning commissions, that there are circumstances within Dove Park subdivision, which is specifically listed within the contiguous lot rule and has a special rule applying to it, where the minimum lot width only within that subdivision has to be 75-foot minimum width. But like Mr. Davis has said, there are some, even though most of the lots within the subdivision are 50-foot wide, and combining 3 lots into 2 buildable lots at 75-foot width is the norm, there are some odd-shaped lots that when they are combined, they end up with lot widths of around 72 feet or 73 feet, and thus would require the builder of those lots to come before the planning commission and seek essentially a waiver of the requirement of the 75-foot in order to do so for the difference of 2 or 3 feet. Since there's only a small number of lots that this would apply to, and to help assure uniformity in the decision-making process of the commission by essentially removing that requirement to make those decisions, it's suggested that while you are recommending, presumably, approval or amendments to this contiguous lot rule ordinance, that you include within that recommendation perhaps a recommendation that that 75-foot rule only in Dove Park subdivision be amended to 70-foot to allow for that handful of cases to go forward with a 72 or 73-foot lot width without having to come before this commission for approval of that waiver of 2 or 3 feet in most cases.
Thank you.
I hadn't completely memorized this thing, but I know I worked with Mr. Hand and what have you, and Sydney drawing this thing up. And I think there is I know there is, for example, even above, like if a person only owns 2 lots and he can't expand out to 75 feet, that's an exemption in here, even in the north of the things, to say that he can use that lot. So I think that's also apply to somebody who only owns 2 lots, and he can't get 75 feet out of the 140. I think that's going to be an exemption. I don't know, Mike, if that's in there, but it should be in there if it's not, because we did discuss that.
You're absolutely right, Mr. Tanner, and that is because for many years the parish has had this 50-foot lot width rule for these paper subdivision lots. And what this ordinance proposes to do is to increase that minimum lot width to 75 feet in the northern half of the parish. Well, in order to be equitable to people who have bought those lots, those 50-foot lots in the past, and just haven't developed them yet, they would still be able to develop on 50-foot lots, provided that they owned the lot at the time that this ordinance become effective, which is October 6th, actually. And they have no ability, because they don't own any other lots, to meet the new 75-foot width. So, again, for people or for entities that may own isolated 50-foot lots, even north of the growth boundary line, they would still be able to build on those 50-foot lots, assuming that, again, they owned it prior to the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ron?
Just for additional clarification information, the ordinance also deals with the dormant subdivision part that Mr. Tanner mentioned. That means that if a developer or a consortium of developers own a group of lots, say 20, 30, 40 lots, in a dormant subdivision that are on unopened right-of-ways, then they will be required to reconfigure those lots to meet the underlying zoning of that property at that time, which means they're not necessarily going to be able to do 75-foot lots. If the property is, say, zoned A2, they would actually have to come in and do basically 1-acre size lots, put in infrastructure, sewer and water is a very good possibility, and it would come before the commission for your approval.
Thank you. Mike?
And that's a very good point, Ron, because there are what we call paper subdivisions that haven't been opened yet. And they essentially are vacant land, and they only exist technically on paper recorded in the courthouse. And what this ordinance is going to require is for those paper subdivisions that have not yet been opened at all, the owners of those lots, whether it be the original developer or subdivider, if you will, many years ago, or subsequent owners, like Ron said, they would have to come in and essentially re-subdivide or recreate the subdivision consistent with our regulations, whether that be complying with the existing underlying zoning or seeking a new zoning. But they would have to go through that process, as opposed to being allowed to essentially apply to open streets in an area where streets have never been open before, in order to continue this process that we've had over many years of the slow development of these 50-foot lot subdivisions, which we are trying to avoid doing. And it's primarily like Mr. Tanner said, a health, safety, and welfare issue, because you have drainage concerns in this parish, obviously, that these subdivisions don't necessarily comply with if they're allowed to develop or continue to develop as is. You've got sewage and water treatment issues within these subdivisions that are trying to be addressed. And you have the density issues that come with these subdivisions. And you know, as you all know, this parish does have a minimum lot size rule. It's 90 by 140. It's, you know, close to, what is that, a quarter acre lot is the minimum lot size in this parish. And that rule continues, and it has continued for many years. This is essentially an exception to that rule, but with an appreciation that this parish needs affordable housing. And in some areas of the parish, a 90 by 140 or a quarter acre lot is not necessarily affordable. And so how do we address that? Well, we address it, I suggest to you, by having these special circumstances in certain areas where smaller lots would be permissible, provided the appropriate infrastructure is put into place.
Thank you. Mr. Tanner, any final comments? This time we close it to the public, bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve. This is something that I think that is appropriate, especially for these areas, and something much needed.
Thank you. Ron?
I'm sorry, just one additional comment. I think the council may want to look, I talked to Mr. Tanner a few minutes ago, they may want to look at looking at the ordinance a little bit to make some little further clarification maybe on when does the requirement kick in to where they have to put in infrastructure, because excuse me, I apologize, I'm getting over a cold. Again, the idea is to for these developers or a consortium of developers or owners that own a collective number of lots that don't have open streets to obviously comply with code and build it as they would a normal subdivision. But in the case where you might have an isolated incident where you'll have an owner that maybe owns 3 25-foot lots and he happens to have that on an open roadway, would that require him to come in and do a subdivision for a basically one lot subdivision? So I think we just need further clarification, maybe if the council can look at that, to maybe put a number on what point, how many lots contiguously owned by different owners or one owner or developer, as to when that requirement would kick in to require the infrastructure to take place.
Thank you. Commissioner Randolph?
Yes, I just have one typo. Recognition under the continuous lot rule, section 40.34, last sentence. I think that should be 1967 instead of Roman numeral 1967. That's it.
Thank you for the clarification. Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, Martha made a motion to approve.
Correct.
Is that with my statement on the 70-foot lot size width in Dove Park subdivision?
Correct. Well, correct me if
Well,
I'm wrong.
just-
We're going to send it back to the council. The council's going to further amend, if I understand.
Oh, okay, so
Councilman
even if we
Tanner,
approve
so
it
they're
as
gonna-
is, they're still going to
Correct.
change it.
They're going to go back to the council, and the council's going to further do some amending for it.
The only thing I would add to that, Mr. Manella, is that whenever the subdivision regs are amended by the council, it first needs to receive a recommendation on that amendment or proposed amendment from the planning commission before it acts. So that's why it was suggested that rather than the council make that amendment and then send it back to you guys
We
to
can
review.
place it as
Would
amended.
you consider making the recommendation tonight, let it go to the council so it wouldn't have to come back again?
That's all I'm saying.
I don't have a problem with that.
You okay
I
with that,
think we can add that
Councilman?
in.
Okay, so as amended
As
with the
as
70 foot.
amended.
Did you,
I'll second. Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Willie seconded it?
As amended?
As amended, okay. Ron, do you have any further comment? Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Casabon as amended.
Jimmy, that as amended is number 7, you want it changed to 70 feet, is that correct? Okay.
Where it states about the Dove Park
Yeah.
subdivision.
Being
Just checking.
70 feet.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. So we have a motion by Commissioner Casabon as amended specifically to the 70-foot Dove from 75 to 70. Second by Commissioner Willie. Please vote. Motion carries. Old business, Pittman Place, Ward 8, District 9, developer owner, Pittman Place LLC, engineer J.V. Burks and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Gene Belisario. Request by developer to amend the final subdivision plat restrictive covenants. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request by the developer of Pittman Place. They wish to remove, through an act of correction, restrictive covenant number 7 that deals with the responsibility of maintenance upkeep of the retention or detention pond in the subdivision. The developer and the homeowners wish to pass that responsibility on to a third party. So with that, Mr. Shane will be able to answer any specific questions regarding that further.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Yes, sir. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I represent the petitioner and developer, which is Pittman Place LLC. As Mr. Keller and your staff report indicates, we would like to modify General Note 7 on the final subdivision plat so that the developer and homeowners association can allow an individual that owns 2 parcels in the subdivision that abut the pond to take on the maintenance. What this does is it relieves the homeowners association of the burden of performing the maintenance and paying for the maintenance. The third party is willing to do that because he lives on the pond and gets some benefit from doing that, such as fishing in the pond, etc. There are obligations in place to make sure that the pond must continue to meet every standard that your law and you have required as it relates to being a functional detention pond for the subdivision. So we believe that this opportunity is a win-win and in no way, derogates or diminishes the effectiveness of the detention pond. I might add that the agreement that would set up this regime also includes a provision that if the third-party individual does not do the things you think he needs to do, or the homeowners think he needs to do, or the developer thinks he needs to do, all bets are off and it goes back to the developer and the homeowners association. So we'd be no different than we are now. Hopefully that's a decent explanation. If so, we ask that you approve this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to support this request? Is there anyone in the public who wishes to oppose? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Motion to approve with that amendment.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve with the amendment. Commissioner Lauren.
I'll second it, but I have a question for Jeff.
Second by Commissioner Lauren.
Yes, sir.
If you turn your microphone on, Commissioner Lauren.
This is a win-win, but if you were the third party, and you're not going to be there forever, what happens when the property transfers?
The obligation runs with the land.
Okay, like
So-
a deed restriction kind of?
Correct, and if that party does not do the things they need to do, the property automatically reverts back to the developer so that he can transfer it to the homeowners association.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further comment? Commissioner Randolph? We have a motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve as amended, second by Commissioner Lauren. Please vote. Motion carries. Is there any new business to come before the commission? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion for adjournment.